What up, African world? It's Home Team here, and welcome back to another video of African history, culture, and worldview. Also, welcome back to my video series, A Closer Look. Today, we're going to be taking a closer look at Afro-Iranians. By supporting this channel on Patreon, you're helping in the creation of these videos and contributing to this content. On Patreon, you can find more in-depth courses on African history. The link to Patreon is in the description box below. As with all my closer look videos, I try my best to pronounce names or titles that the people use themselves, so please bear with me if you notice any mispronunciations. Also, with videos like these, textbook knowledge on any particular ethnic group will have errors. At times, the scholarship has assumptions that don't reflect a proper historical perspective. So, if you're from this ethnic group, I would really appreciate any additional insight, correction, or revised context so that we can truly understand these Afro-descendant people as best we can. Some of the details concerning the history of Afro-Iranians are a little graphic, and so this video will be censored. If you would like to learn about the full perspective, sources will be posted at the end of the video. The history of African people in Iran and the surrounding region of the Middle East extends all the way into ancient history. Surprisingly, there is well-documented history about African people living in the Persian and Assyrian empires. They had various professions and played different roles throughout most levels of society. Many of the positions that African people performed in these Middle Eastern empires had to do with the military. It's been recorded that a large contingent of Nubian soldiers were present in the Persian army of Xerxes when he invaded Greece in 480 BC. In fact, it's well documented that Assyrian horses and cavalry were in part supplied and trained by African experts from Kush. Several documents mention Kushite horse experts living in Assyria. Daily cites a Neo-Assyrian text mentioning a Kushite holding the high military office of chariot driver of the prefect of the land. Neo-Assyrian texts even mention Africans working in other jobs in the empire. An economic document mentions 2 Kushite eunuchs with Assyrian names collecting personal debts, and 15 Kushite women are found on a list of foreign female workers that included musicians, temple personnel, scribes, smiths, stone workers, a barber, and a baker. Both these texts come from archives in Nineveh and may date from any time between the beginning of Sargon II's reign in 721 BC and the fall of Nineveh in 612. Even though the Assyrian Empire was primarily based in Iraq, I hope we can all see just how ancient the Afro-Iranian presence is, with the clear involvement of Africans in ancient Iranian armies, aka the Persian Empire, coupled with African professionals living and working in the neighboring region of Iraq. It no doubt proves the extensive history of Afro-descended people in that general region, as the modern countries of Iraq and Iran clearly did not exist back then. It's clear that Africans, or more specifically, some of the ancestors of the Afro-Iranians, participated in and contributed to the development of 2 of the most iconic civilizations of the Middle East. Even though there is an ancient and medieval presence of Afro-descended people in Iran, most Afro-Iranians seem to descend from the Persian Gulf slave trade of the 19th century, with a sizable portion originating from the Swahili coast. The demand for enslaved people seemed to have increased during this time. The demand for enslaved peoples increased in Iran during the 19th century for 2 main reasons: declining population growth and economic stagnation, largely due to the impacts of disease and famine, along with the harsh climate and bureaucratic mismanagement at the local level. Despite there being no reliable figures, some scholars estimate that around 2,000 to 5,000 Africans were sold in the Persian Gulf annually in the 19th century, some of whom did not survive the journey. Most enslaved Africans were brought into the Gulf on boats belonging to Arabs from the eastern and western coasts of the Persian Gulf and the Ottoman Empire, as well as those living in the port of Lenga. Although most Afro-Iranians seem to have come from the Swahili coast region, a sizable amount also came from Ethiopia. Ethiopian Christians were among the most popular enslaved people traded by Somali traffickers. The Ethiopians who were transported through Persian Gulf trade were characterized into groups based on profession, many of whom were ironworkers, carpenters, domestic servants, bodyguards, and more. However, Afro-Iranians were not just brought into Iranian society for forced labor, but also for the arts. Many enslaved Africans were selected not only for their age, gender, and physical strength, but also for their musicality and ability to perform. Indeed, African dance and music were prevalent in Iranian society, and the former enslaved people were gradually formed into distinct and specialized artistic groups of dancers and singers. Enslaved African entertainers performed in royal courts, weddings, and had various street performances garnering big crowds. Interestingly enough, enslaved Ethiopians contributed to Iranian society in a unique way, bringing their distinct Ethiopian traditions with them. The enslaved Oromos and Gurages of Ethiopia in Northeast Africa introduced into the Iranian society many unique traditions, such as the Zar, Liwa, and Gawat ceremonies. After liberation, Afro-Iranians either stayed in Iran or were sent away by the British to other locations such as India or Zanzibar. Those who stayed in Iran understandably found difficulties transitioning into Iranian society for various reasons. Within cities, Afro-Iranians tended to live in separate quarters. The so-called Black District featured many religious ceremonies. Even though Afro-Iranians brought new dynamic cultures and unique liveliness to Iran, at times, many have felt invisible in their own country. Despite this, their extensive history and contribution to the region cannot be denied. Well, I'm all out, guys. If you like these videos and want to help in its continued production, consider supporting the home team on patreon.com. The link is in the description box below. Know thyself. Remember your ancestors. Peace.